What is it exactly you're depriving the brain of in that situation?
Yeah. So at least, among other things, at least it would be the essential omega-3 fats. So there are 3 omega-3s, and humans can only get one from plants, but it's one that the humans don't use. We need the other 2, and they only come from animal source foods.
And you could supplement.
Absolutely.
Right. And that would...
Yeah, you can, but so the solution in that regard is the vegan must be educated enough to know what they're deficient in, and then wealthy enough to afford the supplements to make up for it. So insulin resistance, why would it exist at all? It would probably be a way for the body to know when it was needed to hold on to energy a little better. So now, I say that now, and someone would think, well, but why would I want to hold on to energy in a way where it's causing hypertension and Alzheimer's disease and increasing the risk of heart disease? Not all versions of insulin resistance are negative. So there is what all the insulin resistance that you and I have been talking about is pathological insulin resistance or harmful insulin resistance. Insulin resistance that serves no good purpose and it's making us sick. However, there is insulin resistance in human development, which is physiological or helpful. It's supposed to happen. And that is the 2 P's of physiological insulin resistance, puberty and pregnancy. Because in both of those instances, as we outlined earlier, when the body's insulin resistant, insulin is high. That's not always bad because insulin wants things to grow. It is like a fertilizer in the body. Now, sometimes it's misplaced and results in problems like increasing the risk of cancer, for example. But in other instances, if you have a young child who needs some explosive growth during puberty, well, then that's really helpful. Insulin's telling the body to store more energy, to build up tissues, including muscle and bone, but also including fat.
So in pregnancy, insulin's playing a role in growing the placenta.
It sure is.
The breasts.
Yeah, so in the woman, after she's finished puberty, the only other time of growth she'll ever have will be pregnancy. And so those are the 2 instances where the body has become insulin resistant to take advantage of the heightened scenario where it can grow. Wow. Goodness, yes. Yes, so her body not only needs to grow tissue mass, like the uterus has to get much bigger. She has to grow a placenta. She also needs to become a little insulin resistant to give a little more glucose to her baby because she is, after all, now living for 2 people. And so as her body becomes insulin resistant, it actually facilitates the growth of the baby a little more rapidly. But as you noted, it helps her store more fat. And progesterone is another hormone that even accelerates that process. But basically, it's her body's way of saying, hey, I am committing to growing another human, and it's going to be metabolically very demanding. And so I'm going to have as much extra fat or as much extra energy as I can in order to ensure that if there's any sort of scarcity in food that happens during the course of the pregnancy, I'll have enough energy to get through it all. And then maybe I'll even have enough to continue to feed the baby with lactation after the baby's born. Gestational diabetes is essentially type 2 diabetes of pregnancy. So it's a perfectly timed question because if you look at the average woman who is very healthy, very insulin sensitive at the beginning of her pregnancy, so glucose is normal and insulin is normal. Over the course of her pregnancy, she stays normal, healthy pregnant woman, which is to say she has physiological insulin resistance. She doesn't get diagnosed with gestational diabetes, though, which means her glucose is normal. But to keep her glucose normal, because she is insulin resistant, but for a purpose to help her body grow, her insulin levels are high, and then the glucose is still in a normal range. And then in some women, especially if she has a family history of type 2 diabetes, the insulin resistance goes too far. Now she has high insulin, like all pregnant women do, but she's not able to keep her glucose levels in check.
So if I'm eating loads and loads of sugar throughout a pregnancy...
That will compound the problem. Absolutely. So then she will go from the normal insulin resistance of pregnancy into the insulin resistance of diabetes. So it really is like type 2 diabetes, but a microcosm of it, a mini version that was really instigated or initiated because of the pregnancy, combined with a bit of a genetic predisposition, combined with her eating the worst possible way.
Does that then impact the future baby?
Oh, for sure it does. Yeah. So think about, it's almost like the baby is literally developing in a hyperglycemic, hyperinsulinemic environment. So the baby gets hardwired to want to continue to exist in a state of high insulin and high glucose after the baby is born. And so, yes, the offspring of mothers who have gestational diabetes are significantly more likely to gain weight and be chubbier or fatter than their counterparts and to later develop type 2 diabetes. Yeah, a resounding yes.
I read in your book that these infants have a 40% higher chance to be obese and have metabolic complications in their teenage years and beyond.
Yes, I mean, a significant thing. And I say that with all of the sympathy I can for the mother who may be struggling with this. But it is certainly a motivation for mom to just be mindful of what you're eating.